Good evening. Welcome to the English Department's night, Noc Anglistów. My name is Justyna Deszcz-Tryhubczak, and I am Associate Professor at the Institute of English Studies at the University of Wrocław. And tonight I would like to invite you to the presentation of Seen and Heard, Young People's Voices and Freedom of Expression, an international project in which I am involved on behalf of the University of Wrocław as the coordinator and academic lead. In the first part of this meeting, I will briefly discuss the project, and then in the second part, I would like to invite you to follow the conversation with colleagues that are also involved in the project. And our conversation has this title, Researching Young People's Voices and Freedom of Expression from Conceptualization to Impact. Seen and Heard, Young People's Voices and Freedom of Expression is a research and educational project that aligns with the tenets of engaged humanities and citizen science more broadly, as it targets collaboration with non-academic actors and the public. And here in the slide, you can see the participants of the consortium, the University of Malta as the main coordinator of the project, the University of Wrocław, Humboldt University in Berlin, and Amnesty International Poland. We also collaborate with local schools, cultural institutions, educators, artists, filmmakers, illustrators, writers, publishers, and researchers. And here in Wrocław, we collaborate with primary school number 1. And let me stress that this project is funded by the Erasmus Plus program, cooperation partnerships in higher education, and its aim is to facilitate cross-sectoral collaborations between academic and non-academic partners. Here are our goals. So we want to initiate intergenerational creative protest as a form of exercising freedom of speech through collaborations of young people, schools, educators, researchers, and artists. And our second goal, we want to implement just and inclusive social movement in 3 European countries with post-migrant societies. And here are some questions that we address in the project. So we want to know how children's literature and culture influence young people's sense of belonging in Europe and their understanding of freedom of speech and children's rights more broadly. How can they inspire intergenerational activism? We are also interested in how young people see freedom of speech in light of the cultural belonging and life experiences. We also explore how adults see young people's freedom of speech and children's rights more broadly. So how do they understand and respond to young people's needs, hopes, ambitions, dreams? And if our research works, we want to see, of course, what the results are going to be. But in particular, we want to see what it means to mobilize a successful young people's protest. What are its risks and what is its potential? But this is still ahead of us. These are the major concepts, theoretical, methodological concepts that we have been working with. But let me emphasize that this project is very dynamic from the very beginning, and our theoretical and methodological framework has been evolving alongside our work. But we can still distinguish some major crucial concepts for our work. So one of them is the ethics of care. Care for the well-being of all the participants, younger and older. Another such concept is young people's protagonism. This means actively acknowledging and being attentive to children's social and political agencies. Another crucial concept, epistemic justice. It's openness to various kinds of experience, expertise, and knowledge production, not necessarily sanctioned by academia. So we mean here, for example, children's knowledge of their life worlds and knowledge production based on art. And then inter- and intragenerational solidarity and collaboration. Our project is very much about rendering each other capable, about enlarging each other's potential and competences, again, intra- and intergenerationally. And we think that as we engage children in conversations about their lives, and as we treat them with dignity, kindness, and understanding, we demonstrate in practice our commitment to equality and justice for all. We believe that thinking and doing with these concepts enables us to contribute to a more just world for younger and older generations alike. And here you can see the whole team, quite a lot of people are involved in this project, academics and non-academics alike. And we would like to invite you to follow us on social media, to follow our website. And now I would like to invite you to follow the conversation with 3 colleagues that are also involved in the project. So it's my great pleasure to be here with my colleagues from the project, from Seen and Heard. And it's great pleasure also for me to hear from them what they take away from the project, or what they actually put into the project in the first place. So let me very briefly introduce them. I'm so happy to introduce the academic lead for the whole project, Dr. Justyna Deszcz-Tryhubczak from the University of Malta. Justyna is a senior lecturer in the Department of English Studies at the University of Malta, and she's, I think, first of all, a children's literature scholar, but also an activist. Then we have with us also Nikki Parker, who is who is not an academic lead, but also helps us, in fact, a lot in our academic work and contributing to the development of the project. Nikki is lead consultant for Amnesty International, and she has vast experience working creatively, I think, and with literature, but in relation to human rights and children's rights. So I do recommend look her up. She has authored, co-authored, co-created a number of books, also books for children and young people more broadly on human rights. Last but not least, of course, we have with us today Dr. Fariba Schulz from Humboldt University in Berlin. And she's a senior lecturer in the Institute of Education there, but she also works at the University of Potsdam. And she's also a children's literature expert. So thank you very much for finding the time to join me here on the English Department's Night, which is an annual event for all the English departments in Poland. So thank you very much for being here. Okay, so I would, if that's okay, start with a question to Justyna, who is, I would say, the kind of the spirit and the soul of the whole project. So I would like to ask you, because I think we never maybe talked so much about it. What inspired you? How did this idea, come in the first place to your mind? If you could maybe share a little bit about that.
Yeah, thank you, Justyna, for hosting us here, first of all, and hello to everybody in the audience who is listening to this brief presentation. I think I've always been an activist at heart, and throughout my academic career have looked for ways of integrating it. But a key moment was hosting the Child and the Book 2022. I saw Fariba host the 2021 version, and I was very inspired, and I really wanted to bring this topic to Malta as well, because I'm always aware of the national reality in which I work and in which all of us work. And that conference was at the tail end of COVID, so throughout the preparation, we didn't know if it would be online or in person. And that's important because it ended up being hybrid, and we had a large number of nationalities present, a large number of scholars, activists, and artists who were able to participate because there was both online and in-person possibility. There I met all of you, of course, some again and some for the first time. And the topic of children's rights, of human rights, moved everybody at that conference very deeply, especially at the end of the pandemic. And through conversations with Nikki and also Justyna, you gave a brilliant keynote at that conference, and talking with Fariba about her experience hosting the Child and the Book, it felt like a really auspicious moment, like all of us had been brought together, that we were all complementary, and that so much more needed to be explored, so much more needed to be said. And the most important of that, perhaps, was to find a way to bring the children, the demographic we represent in our professional lives, into the space, to really hear their voices. And I think the inspiration came from that, from the children themselves and the absence of them in a conference that was dedicated to their rights. So together we formed this consortium, and I would say we never looked back. It's been a productive, rich, intense
True. Yeah.
journey over the past 2 years. We're midway, and I'm still very excited to see what else. Maybe
Thank
later.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Juliana, for sharing this. Fariba, Nikki, you have something to add? Maybe some memories from that conference? The Child in the Book is, of course, a very important event in our, let's say, professional kind of lifetime, if I may say so, of children's literature scholars. Right, that's the kind of annual gathering. So that's understandably, of course, it inspired a lot. Yeah. But thank you also for organizing it and also motivating us, right, to do further work. Paniki, you'd like to?
For me, I guess, as a non-academic, as a practitioner, it was the first academic conference I'd been to, and I went because, in fact, a friend saw it and recommended it because of the issue of agency, children's voice and agency, which seems so pertinent to my work at Amnesty International. And I have to say it was fascinating to listen to the presentations and realize that there could and should be a closer connection between academics working in this field and activism. So it was wonderful when we were able to get this project off the ground.
Fariba?
Yeah, and for me, it was as well a starting point because you brought in so many artists. So we had, or not we, you invited, and then we had the pleasure to meet Meg Rosso as a novelist and talking about her experience and her perspective on children's literature and child's agency, and that was so moving. I think I can remember I saw some tears in the audience during this keynote. So this was as well a special moment for me, and something I think you really included in this project, artists, and what it could mean to work with them or collaborate. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for this exchange of, I think, and kind of for the memories, I think, right, that keep that sustain us, right, in our work. I think they are very important. I would like now to ask Nikki, so for a kind of more broader, for a broader reflection on how, in your experience, in your work, how have you seen children's literature? How do you perceive its potential to foster, I think, our caring for children's rights, specifically children's rights?
Yes, I mean, I think for me, the fundamental is that international human rights, including children's human rights, they all grew out of shared human values. Because they were international, it required thinkers and leaders from all over the world coming together after World War II and the Holocaust to create the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. And to be able to agree those laws, they had to start with the basic values. And those basic values are primarily things like equality and fairness, safety, privacy, things that are often really key themes in children's books, whether it's in the narrative or the protagonists, well-rounded protagonists will display though and journey through those qualities, if you like, those values. So in a sense, children's literature holds and explores and helps children explore those values for themselves and ask questions. And I also think that we tend to think of human rights as being carried out perhaps in a combative way in the law courts and on streets and demonstrations and marches, which are crucial, but they may be seen as a little frightening by people who are more introverted, maybe, or don't have, or are in positions where it's too risky for them to speak out. And at that point, the literature can be incredibly helpful to form your own views and broaden your own horizons and help you step into other people's shoes. That obviously empathy is a crucial part of human rights, really. And with this project, with Seen and Heard, it's very overtly about children's right to freedom of expression, which includes their right to access knowledge and information, but also to speak out about the matters that concern them. And we're working with Sita Brahmachari, the author, and with the illustrator Chris Riddell on what will become we're very early stages, but what will become a communal sort of collective poem where we are gathering through workshops the real concerns of the children, what they want to see changed in the world. Sita is making it into a communal poem. And as the children draw their pictures, Chris Riddell will be inspired and informed and reflect their drawings within the book. So we hope that this children's book will be a collective reflection, a sort of call and response of what we are finding through this entire project, which has also upheld another children's rights, their right to participate.
Thank you, Nikki. Juliana, would like to respond, perhaps?
Yes.
From your perspective.
And I think what has struck me the most in working with you, Nikki, and your team, the team at Amnesty International Poland, has been, I've always thought of myself as very open, we're academics, we're used to questioning, but when we received human rights education training, and when I listened to your perspective in our discussions, I find myself checking my position, checking my assumptions. So even being embedded in a process that is questioning and that is supposed to be inclusive, and there's always space for growth. So I think what I really appreciate about your work is the absolute dignity that you give the children in the process, even though logistically it might be hard, and the expertise that you bring in maintaining that balance, right, of addressing the difficult questions, but keeping the children safe in the process of doing so. It's a really fine line, I think, is what I've become very aware of.
Thank you. I think that human rights education aspect, which my colleagues are specialists in rather than me, but I'm so impressed by it all the time. It is a sort of lifelong learning of questioning and checking yourself, as you say.
Fariba?
Yeah, and this is kind of tough one, I would say. And bringing those literature into the classroom and having the opportunity to reflect on kind of models of reality is kind of a safe space to reflect upon it. So you're not shattered in the first moment that you can't be that good person that you want to be. But so this is really a perfect opportunity to use literature or children's literature in our case to reflect on those on human rights and the things you want society to be and us to be, yes, or wish to be, yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I really like this idea about this kind of utopian, but in the good sense, right?
Yes,
I think it's kind of motivating and critical perspective that we can develop thinking of children's rights and human rights utopian for all of us, right? Even for adults as well. Yeah. And I've been also thinking about children's creativity, and there's a lot of discussion, and we've had these discussions as well, about what counts as, let's say, a book created by a child, let's say, right? Or a poem created by a child. Is this children's literature or not? I think this has been also theoretically discussed quite a lot recently. But yeah, this question of children's rights and children's right also to be recognized as artists is also something I think that has surfaced in our work. Thank you very much for that. I have a question to Fariba now. What would you say is maybe the most rewarding in the project for you? What has been the most rewarding aspect of our work, but maybe also challenging, or you can approach it the way you want.
Yeah.
Please.
Well, that's not really so easy to answer because the project is so complex and there are so many different interaction and activities and happening and also products being created at so many levels. Nikki already has told about the book that is were produced or made by Sita and Chris, and in cooperation with the children. So this could be, this is kind of challenging as well, yeah, but it is rewarding at the same time, I would say, and maybe because of this diverse actions and interactions that are in play. So it's of course the opportunity to collaborate with so many different partners with different perspectives professionally and on different sub-projects, I would say. Yeah, well, collaborating with researchers, with activists, with educators, artists, and even and as well with the students is kind of using different approaches to focus on our core goal or our aim to make the voices of young people visible, and that's kind of, well, that's great, and it's never boring, I would say. So you never get used to one thing because you kind of not in the situation. There's no time to hold your breath, I would say, but it's kind of rushing adrenaline and adventures at the same time. So you have both, and this kind of interdisciplinary knowledge and the ideas and the experiences that we have because of this diverse consortium and everybody who joins us, we have at our disposal is kind of, I would say, the opportunity, or it makes it happen that we can support the young people, and also to, as Juliana already has said as well, to transform our own professional perspectives. So I would say this is it's challenging and it's the reward at the same time. So yeah.
Yes, thank you, Fariba. Juliana, we talked yesterday about play a little bit on another occasion, but Fariba mentioned adventure and play. Adventure is also, I think, a nice way to describe what we've been doing. What do you think, Juliana?
Yeah, I think also what came to mind when Fariba was sharing was the importance we give to reciprocity. So the methodology of care, which makes the space safe enough for both the children and the grown-ups to feel like they can play. Because unless you feel safe, you're not going to step into play. And I think part of the challenge is caring so deeply. At no point, no matter how tired or frustrated or demotivated any member of the consortium felt, the care still remained, and that nourishes, and people raise each other up, and that translates to the children. And play in this project has also meant letting go of all our expectations. So we're not attached to the data that we'll have at the end, to the publications, to the priority has always been the child and the experience of the child and the connections that emerge from placing the child at the center. And children will play with us or in spite of us, I think. It's, for me, been beautiful to surrender to that as well, even though it takes some unlearning, because at the back of my mind, I'm thinking, we have to achieve this objective and this objective. And then the children are just like, you know, what about the drawing, or what about the paint, or what about the video I want to record? So yeah, I really agree with what Fariba has been saying. I'm very grateful for everything I've learned about this. You introduced me to this concept. It's an academic concept, Justyna, but I hold it very close to my heart. And I think it's changing me as an academic, not just as a person, but even within the institution. So yeah.
Thank you, Nikki. You would like to maybe add a little bit?
Well, I was thinking as Fariba was speaking about the interweaving of all of the different disciplines, as well as, you know, the artists and the children and the young people. And when I was talking about the children's book earlier, that it seems that that's such an obvious thing, but actually it's the distillation of a massive complexity. And we still don't know what it will turn out like. So you have to trust, we have to trust in each other, as Juliana was saying, and trust that what we are doing will turn out well, because we put care and good faith into it. Yeah, so there is an adventure, and it is playful and a lot of hard work too.
Yes, I agree. I also like this idea of the process of life. I would say that it's just going on, let's say, at schools. We've recently been doing a lot of research at schools in Malta, in Berlin, and in Wrocław. And of course, life is just going on there, right? And then I think we are privileged to be able to become part of this life. It is, of course, short term. Well, maybe not so short term, at least in Wrocław's case. We've been with the school for the second year in a way. So we kind of, well, the children know us a little bit better than, let's say, last spring. So I think being part of this community is also, and doing something, I think, from my perspective as well, being born in Wrocław, and, you know, I've lived here all my life with short breaks. I think I'm contributing to the life of my city in this sense as well. So maybe it sounds a little bit pompous, but I do feel that that I'm part of something bigger, thanks to the project. Okay. Thank you very much for this meta-reflection, and thank you all of you who've been following us in this conversation. And of course, we encourage you to visit our website and to follow our work. Thank you very much.